Hello, book lovers, and welcome to Book Talk Radio Club. My name is Claire Harris, and today I'm talking to Tanya Vanderham. Tanya is the author of Cowgirl, a heartwarming memoir of life growing up on and running her own dairy farm. There are many animals lovingly represented in this book: birds, dogs, cats, goats, horses, and a few surprises amongst the menagerie, and of course cows. Hi Tanya, thank you for coming to talk to me on Book Talk Radio Club.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Tanya, I have to ask first, why did you decide to write your memoir, Cowgirl?
Well, I realized what an exciting life I had as a child growing up on a dairy farm and being raised there, and all sorts of animals were in my life. And by looking back, I thought to myself, I really should write this down and tell people all these wonderful experiences I have had.
Absolutely. So Cowgirl offers readers a look at life growing up on a dairy farm and running your own dairy farm. How much and what changed over the years in the running of the dairy farm?
Well, it has changed tremendously. First of all, children don't have the wonderful experience of being on an actual little family dairy farm, running around playing in the dirt, digging ditches, climbing trees, and all that. The children today don't really get to do that, and our world isn't even safe like it used to be. So I really am sorry, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, so children could read what it was like. Also, dairies in California are no longer the family farm. They're more commercialized, and the cows are just numbers and money makers. They're not actually treated as individual animals like they were back in the 50s and 60s, and I just love cows.
It's so sad when I hear that, because they're just animals. They've got personalities, they're souls as well, and to be treated like that's awful.
Yeah, it's sad. It's very sad.
So
I could go on and on.
I bet. I bet. What are your earliest memories as a cowgirl?
My very earliest memory is when I was 4 years old. I had snuck out of the house to go to our dairy and go down the hay lane and look at all the beautiful cows that were eating hay. And I was looking at them, and it was very early in the morning, so the feed was kind of steaming a little bit, but they were just gorgeous. And then all of a sudden I heard a real low growl, and I thought to myself, gee, what is that? And I looked, a big old head was in the stanchions a little bit farther down, and it was a great big bull with a ring in his nose, and he was looking at me, and he was growling at me, and then him doing that got 3 or 4 other bulls going, and they were all growling at me. So I took off running, and I ran home, and I went in the house, and my mom said, what's the matter with you? And I told her what I did, and she said, you should never go out by yourself, Tanya. So that was my first memory.
Mm-hmm. Milk doesn't just appear in the grocery store chiller cabinet. We forget that there is a process involved, including cows, of course. Can you describe a day in the life of a dairy cow?
Yes. Well, they're out in their corrals, laying down, sleeping, and early morning, I would say average time, 5 a.m., the worker would go out and get the cows out of the corral, get them up, and bring them into the barn. They would go in the wash pen first, where sprinklers would come on and just shower them all over, and then they would go into like individual stalls where the milker would use a hand spray to make sure that the udder was completely clean and dry it off and milk them. And then while they were being milked, they had a little container that had grain that they just absolutely loved. So that's how they would get milked, and then when they were finished, they would be released. They would go back to their pen where fresh alfalfa would be waiting for them at the stanchions. They would enjoy eating that hay and drinking some water. Then they'd go lay down and make more milk. And then they'd do the same thing again 6 hours, 12 hours later.
Sounds like a good life then.
Yeah.
Of course there must have been... I bet. Of course there must have been some very funny moments when you ran your dairy farm. What sticks out most in your mind?
My very favorite, it's really not about a cow, but my very favorite is my son and the donkey. And I decided that people that came to our dairy to see our cows and horses and stuff, it would be good to get a donkey. So I went to the auction. I bought a very beautiful donkey, and she was tame, and she pulled a cart, and she was just really nice. Well, we put her with the horses, and then we really kind of just ignored her because I really just bought her for people to see.
Mm.
Well, after about a year, she had gotten kind of mean, but I didn't think she was that bad. And then one day, my son Brad was by the fence looking, and he was admiring a mother hen that had just walked across the pen with brand new born baby chicks, and he thought, oh, that's so cute. All of a sudden, that donkey went running and stamping on the baby chicks. My son was horrified.
Oh my
He
God.
jumped over the fence. He ran in, grabbed the donkey by the neck. Then the donkey took him for a squirrel. The donkey was hee-hawing. My son was slugging the donkey. The donkey was trying to bite him. And finally, my son dove off and drove under the fence and got out of that pen. And he just couldn't believe it. He told me this story, and I thought, that donkey's got to go. What if someone goes in there and tries to pet her, and she's mean? So I didn't say anything to him. I got rid of her, and then a couple of days later, I told him, I said, Brad, I got rid of the donkey, and my son said, oh, Mom, I was ready for round 2.
What age group is the book aimed at?
Well, actually, what it is it's all ages. And I say that because parents like to read to their toddlers and their younger children. And then there are things that are a little, how you would say, not quite for younger minds. So the parents can just read the book first, please, and then see the parts they may not want to do births that are being described, even though there were births being described that my little 5, 6, and 8-year-old grandchildren were helping me deliver. But sometimes people don't like to hear those kind of things. And then there is a story, and there was a little bit sad, so maybe they should read the book first. But otherwise, I would say anybody that was age 10 and up could, but I think the younger ones would really love it. I know my younger grandchildren on down to age 2 really did love it.
I missed out a question here, so I'm going to ask it now. In part 2 of your interview about Cowgirl, we'll be talking about the animals that you grew up with and shared your life with when you ran your own dairy farm. Looking back, Tanya, is there a particular animal that you felt the closest companionship with?
Yes, and it really wasn't. There were several, and there were some cows that were so much fun. We had a cow that we took on television shows and stuff all the time, and she was just a really special cow. But my very favorite animal was a dog I had, and her name was Puppy. She was my sister's dog had puppies, and so the last 2 that were left was Puppy and her brother Whitey. So I took those 2 and raised them, and I had my son at the same time they were born.
Right.
So one day I was pushing my stroller and going down to the store, and Puppy and Whitey always walked with me. So when we would go past this one house, this really mean German Shepherd was on a chain, and he was just like really wanting to get us, but he was on a chain. So anyway, this went on for a couple of months. And then, and Whitey, you should have seen him. He was just being so defensive, and Puppy was doing nothing at all. So one day we were going, and the dog was doing it again, and his chain snapped. And he came running for me and my baby. And Whitey hit the road running for home, the big brave dog, and Puppy jumped out in front of us and fought that dog, and I pushed my baby home, and then a few minutes later, Puppy come walking down behind us, and she was just fine. So that dog did so many things, and she loved my children so much. She was with them constantly.
Aww.
So I remember her the most. What a wonderful dog.
If you could offer one piece of advice for anyone considering writing their memoir, what would it be?
Well, I'd like to let them know that if they're going to write a memoir, they need to be prepared to go down memory lane, because you are sharing very private moments, very special moments, and you may not be able to share things that everyone would like, but you're sure going to touch some hearts, and it is heartfelt to you. So therefore, I guarantee some people will really enjoy reading it. It's almost like therapeutic memories. So just remember that you are writing memories, and they will touch you, and then you you share them with others.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. You've received some lovely reviews for Cowgirl, including such a nice book full of heartwarming and educational stories. My kids crack up listening to me read them a chapter each night. Great buy. And great stories of things that have happened to a remarkable lady. Overall, this is a wonderful book to pick up if you are looking for something easy to read, but yet fascinating at the same time. Great reviews there, Tanya. So lastly, where can Book Talk Radio Club's listeners purchase Cowgirl?
Well, they can go on Amazon and search Tanya Vanderham Cowgirl.
Mm-hmm.
And then also they can go on Tanya Vanderham Books website, www.tanyavanderhambooks.com. And it's also available on Kindle.
Wonderful. All right, well, thank you, Tanya. That was terrific. I look forward to part 2 when we'll be chatting about the animals and their characters and personalities. In the meantime, thank you everyone for listening to Book Talk Radio Club. Thanks ever so much, Tanya.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you, Claire.
Bye now.